Hey there guys, this is Cole. Well, this is the first in a series I'm going to be doing called Bad Remake Debate, Episode 1. And in this episode, Now, I was inspired by this idea. If you're watching this, shout out to Don G. Corleone, a really good YouTuber. Every once in a while, he does this video series called Bad Sequel Debate, where he'll review 3 movie sequels in one video and, basically talk about the bad qualities of them and overall determine what is the worst of those 3. Well, since he hasn't done this idea yet, I figured I'm going to do something kind of similar to it, but with movie remakes. And today's episode of Bad Movie Remake Debate, Episode 1, we are going to be talking about 3 horror movie remakes. And the 3 remakes we're going to be talking about are Quarantine from 2008, the Evil Dead remake from 2013, and The Strangers Chapter 1 from 2024. And so, now how this works is, I'm going to go in chronological order for, we're basically going in the order that the movies were released in. So, the first one I'm going to talk about is Quarantine from 2008. So, yes, for those of you guys who do not know, the 2008 found footage horror movie Quarantine is actually an American remake of a Spanish horror movie called Rec. And I have seen the original Rec movie from 2007. It is a really good found footage Spanish horror movie. And the premise of the original movie is basically about a group of people trapped inside of an isolated building that is basically, and the building's basically locked down, and the whole building is put into quarantine mode, trapping the people inside of the building. And it's like a 12-story tall building, and the main group of characters have to outrun zombies and stuff like that. And the original Rec movie is really good. And then a year later, in 2008, Sony and Scream Gems did an American remake of it, starring Jennifer Carpenter, who was in the TV show Dexter, which I've only seen half of the first season of that show, but I did like what I've seen. But essentially, the American remake of it, it's pretty much a shot-for-shot remake. And if you guys know me, I absolutely despise shot-for-shot remakes. I think they're pointless and they don't add anything new to it. And this movie's no exception. But there are a few positive things I do have about this movie. Like one of the few positives I do have with the movie, I do think Jennifer Carpenter, she does actually give a pretty good performance as the lead character in the movie. And I do think that the cinematography in certain parts of this movie is really good. Unfortunately, the reason I don't like this movie is because it's a crappy shot-for-shot remake that doesn't... I get that if you're remaking it, you have to have it be similar, but at the very least, don't make it shot for shot. And that's really the problem I have with this movie. And now, this is an issue in the original movie, but, and it applies here to the remake. I am not a fan of the very abrupt ending where the main character dies and, gets dragged off camera. I'm like, really? That's how you end your movie? I get that not all horror movies are gonna have happy endings, but it was just so abrupt. And now, as a point of reference with the Rec franchise, I've really only seen the original Spanish movie from 2007 called Rec, and of course the American remake Quarantine. So I haven't seen any of the sequels to Rec or Quarantine 2 yet, but I have heard that the ending makes a lot more sense if you watch Rec 3, so I'll eventually have to get caught up and watch Rec 2 and 3, but yeah, this American remake of Quarantine, pretty bad movie overall, and I would rate it a 3 out of 10. And now we move on to the next remake, Evil Dead from 2013, directed by Fede Alvarez. Now, everyone knows about the TV show Ash vs. Evil Dead, which is basically a continuation of the original Evil Dead movies by Sam Raimi. And for those of you guys who know me, when it comes to the 1981 horror movie, The Evil Dead, directed by Sam Raimi, Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, and the third movie, Army of Darkness, I absolutely love all three of those movies. I think that all three of those movies are fantastic. So I didn't think a remake was necessary. And the thing is, when I first saw this remake, I did like it, but rewatched it last year, and I really did not like this remake on second viewing. Now, I guess by default, of the three remakes we're talking about, it's the best by default, but that's not saying much. Like, very much, this movie is about a group of people who go to a cabin, very much like the original movie, and some bad stuff starts to go on with, with the whole, the Necronomicon and stuff. And one thing I gotta say I really did not like about the Evil Dead remake, I really did not like the design of the new Necromorph book. I thought it was very bland and see, what made the original Evil Dead movies great, what made the first three Evil Dead movies great was that they were creative. They had they were creative. Like, they had a lot of creativity. That's what I really like about the first three Evil Dead movies by Sam Raimi. And, of course, Bruce Campbell is an iconic character as Ash Williams. But when you remove that, the Evil Dead, I don't think, works without him. And the main characters in this movie, I really did not like. Like the teens, for example, like the two guys, they have the girl in this cabin for reasons that was very off-putting to me that I did not like at all. And this did not feel like Evil Dead. Now, look, I get it, because if you really think about it, the original Evil Dead movie, yes, the original Evil Dead movie, yes, it is a horror movie, but it's also like a dark comedy at the same time. So I'm like, so look, I would not have been against a more serious take on Evil Dead that removes the campy humor. I would not have been against that. But unfortunately, I didn't think this remake was very well executed. But I guess if I had to watch any of these three, I would watch any of these three remakes. I would watch that over it, because one thing I will say is that I do think that the blood and the guts, I think that the practical effects are actually really good in this movie. I think that the blood and a lot of the practical effects are good. There is a certain sequence with a nail gun that I did think was rather well done. And I actually do like the ending where the main character, takes a chainsaw and you know what happens if you've seen the movie. I liked those aspects about it, but other than that, the Evil Dead remake was pretty bad, and I'll rate it a 3.5 out of 10. And in my opinion, this is where the downfall of the Evil Dead franchise began. But luckily, a few years later, we got the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show, which was a continuation of the first three movies by Sam Raimi, and I will say that actually was a rather good TV show. And the movie Evil Dead Rise, which was like a new sequel, I didn't care for that either, but I would say it's a little better than the Evil Dead remake, but that's not saying much, so I'll give this movie a 3.5 out of 10. And finally, I saved the worst one for last. And, of course, the next one up is The Strangers Chapter 1 from 2024. And for those of you guys who do not know, this actually is a remake, because the original movie, The Strangers from 2008, is a home invasion horror movie starring Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman. And I know some people don't like the original movie and think it's overrated, and now, I do like the original movie. It's not perfect. It does have its problems, but I do like it for what it is. And I do think that the strangers themselves, like the masks, I do think are rather effective and creepy. However, one thing that everyone can agree, but here's the thing. Whether people like the original Strangers movie or they don't, everyone does agree on one thing. This remake, The Strangers Chapter 1, from 2024 is absolutely abysmal, and this is yet another example of a really bad remake. That the reason this remake is bad is because it's a very lame shot-for-shot remake that does almost nothing new with the material, and again, I do not like when movies do that. And I did not think the acting was very good in this movie, and like I especially hated the sequel tease at the end, because here's the thing with the original Strangers movie. That movie did not have a sequel tease ending at all, but here's the thing. This remake, when it came out, it got horrible reviews by critics and audiences, and of course, the ending teased a sequel, and we got 2 sequels to this, but the reason that even happened was because all 3 of these movies were actually filmed back to back, and I hated this remake so much that I haven't even bothered with The Strangers Chapter 2 and 3, which I heard were somehow worse than this. But if I have any good qualities to this movie, and it's very few and far between, once again, I do think that the mask to The Strangers is rather effective, and there is some good cinematography, but other than that, this remake is absolutely abysmal, and it's easily the worst of these 3 remakes. So yeah. Anyway, and so yeah, the winner of this choice for the worst remake goes to The Strangers Chapter 1 from 2024. And the thing that sucks is that this movie was directed by Rennie Harlin, who is actually a rather good director. He directed Die Hard 2, Cliffhanger, The Long Kiss Goodnight, and Deep Blue Sea. All movies that I rather enjoy, but yeah, he really went downhill, and yeah, this is easily one of Rennie Harlin's worst movies, and easily the worst of these 3 remakes. So yeah. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video, and we will catch you guys later. Bye-bye now. And next up, for bad remake debates, I will be tackling, a sci-fi edition. So yeah, we'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye now.